sophomore. He has been playing. He had varsity. He made a varsity touchdown.
Yay. He did good in the playoffs?
The first game, yes.
Good for him.
Yeah.
They played
And we played a lot last week because of the crazy
weather.
Well, because they were winning.
Yeah, they were.
And then,
Yeah.
the quarterback was having trouble. He's the quarterback in the DB.
Oh, really?
Okay.
The score, I got a mental score for Springfield High School, and I can't remember who they played, but the score was 94 to 72.
This was a basketball game?
This is football.
A football game was 94 to 72?
No defense.
Did the defense just stay home that day?
94 to 72.
That's hilarious. All right, we are going to get going here. Move down to the comment section. And I'm showing one person online.
Sarah.
I don't know, maybe. It could be Don, yeah. It could be Sarah. It could be Darren. Who knows?
Or Denise.
Or Denise. Yeah, I don't know who it is. Oh, now there's two people. All right. It's growing exponentially. Sarah says, here.
What department is she in? She was just on Facebook.
She is, she is in anesthesia, but she's doing MICU, medical ICU, is what she's doing right now.
Which medical ICU.
Medical ICU. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just a general?
She is an ICU, I don't know, Sarah, what are you? An ICU doctor? Oh, Darren Taylor says he's here too.
Okay.
Sarah, they want to know what you're doing. What is medical ICU as opposed to ICU or any other kind of ICU? We're probably going to get. It's taken a while, so we're probably going to get like 3 paragraphs now. Yeah.
If you got out of the car?
Yeah. Make sure you didn't fall out of the car.
Yeah.
Maybe he went. Did he come home there?
I don't know.
I didn't
I
hear
didn't see
the
it.
door.
What?
I didn't hear the door.
Yeah, we heard the door.
Oh,
Yeah.
here it comes.
There it comes.
He must have gone there.
He's sneaking in. He's coming in a back way.
You're starting to wonder if he.
Okay, here we go. Sarah says, MICU this month, medical ICU, first 24-hour call tomorrow. Critical care is ICU, super sick patients.
Yeah.
And she's just one of the doctors in the ICU this month.
This month?
Yeah, this month is MICU. Yeah, last month was pulmonary critical care consult or something like that, and radiology, and before that, and then I came. She is an anesthesiologist, but your first year as a resident anesthesiologist, you have to do a little bit of everything throughout the whole hospital. Not everything, but I mean anything that things that deal a lot with lungs and airway and heart and all that kind of stuff, which is stuff you'll deal with anesthesia. So they do all kinds, and she does different rotations in those departments as a resident physician. So, and then next year she'll do the whole year in the OR, which she's looking forward to because that's really what she likes. She loves being in the OR, and so she'll spend the whole year in the OR next year. I think they let her go home and shower occasionally, but mostly she spends the whole year in the OR. That's good. She says, I don't really like to shower anyway. No, wait a minute. That's not what she says. She says, first year is medicine-based to make sure we can take care of patients in the OR. Yeah. Okay. Let's open with prayer. Lord Jesus, we give you thanks for gathering us together around your word. We ask you, Lord, to be present with us, to open our hearts and our minds so that we can understand what you say to us, and more than understand it, so that we can use it in our lives. This we ask in your holy name. Amen. And Carter, for you, Sarah is a member of this congregation who hasn't been here for 13 years but lives on in infamy. And because she went away to school. Yeah, she comes and visits. She went away to school, and she just kept on going to school for 13 years. And now she's a MD, PhD at University of Louisville Hospital. And she goes online and comes to Bible class with us. Yeah. Yeah.
Smart.
She's smart, SMRT. Okay, so before I forget, I'm out of town for 2 weeks,
Right.
at least on Tuesdays. Not out of town like all the weeks. It's just like,
So where are we going?
yeah, I'm going. Yeah, so
Hey, dog.
next Tuesday I'll be in Philadelphia. Oh well, I know I won't be in Philadelphia. I'm be staying in Philadelphia and then taking a shuttle to Princeton, New Jersey, which is where everybody wants to go this time of year. For Princeton, New Jersey, for a board of directors meeting because I'm on the board of directors for the English district, which is there's 35 districts in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. This is our church body, Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. There's 35 districts, and in like compared to the Catholic Church, it's like a diocese. Okay, and so there's 2 districts that are non-geographical. So most of them are all geographical, like the Northern Illinois district, the Central Illinois district, the Southern Illinois district. But the English district and the SELC are non-geographical. SELC is SELC now, but it used to be Slovakian Evangelical Lutheran Church. And so they came into the Missouri Synod as a bunch of Slovaks who had their own little church body called the Slovakian Lutheran Church. And they wanted to join us, but they wanted to keep their identity as Slovakian. And so they stayed a non-geographical district, SELC, and so they cover about 4 or 5 states where they have churches. The English district came into the Missouri Synod in 1911 as the only group of Lutherans that spoke English, because the Missouri Synod all spoke German. Yeah. And so everything was in German, and in the English district, everything was in English, including the magazine that we have now called the Lutheran Witness. That came from the English district because it was the English periodical. The Germans had Lehre und Wehre, and that went out of print eventually because guess what? None of the immigrants' children could read German. And so when the children came of age, no one cared about Lehre und Wehre anymore. And the Lutheran Witness became the standard magazine. So anyway, so the English district applied for membership. We were actually denied twice because they were very concerned about speaking English because German is a very precise language and English is not. And so there was great concern in the Lutheran Church of Missouri Synod that if we start speaking English, all of our theology will get screwed up. And they were right, because look at the ELCA today. The ELCA is the other group of Lutherans who were far more Americanized than the Missouri Synod, and their theology is all over the board. They're basically just American Protestants. There's no difference between them and any of the other Protestants. Where the Missouri Synod has been very careful to keep our theology strictly biblical, and even with and English has been a challenge sometimes in the Synod over the years because English is very fluid and very words change very quickly in English.
Slangy.
Yeah, it's very slangy, very idiomatic, right? And so anyway, so we were denied twice. Finally, in 1911, they decided we could come in. And we would only come in if we could maintain our own culture, our own English culture. And so we came in as a non-geographical district. So now we are in, and then we've grown since then. In fact, if the English district still had all the churches that we've ceded to other districts, we would be by far the largest district. We have 165 congregations in the English district. If we had all the congregations that we've ceded to other districts over the years, we would have 560 congregations now. But the Montana district was all English that we ceded all to form their own geographical district. Most of the southeastern district was all English that we ceded for them to form their own geographical district. Anyway, so we have 165 congregations in 22 states and Canada. That's a long way of telling you why I fly around the country. Yeah, the short answer is I'm going to New Jersey. And you're not going with me. Yeah, and so what we do is, as our current bishop, who's the head of our district, is our bishop, our current bishop feels it's really important to have the board of directors in congregations. So rather than, we have a headquarters, we have a geographic headquarters in Detroit. But rather than fly everybody into Detroit every quarter, we decided that we were going to go to congregations, and they've actually been here once. They met here, I don't know, 2 or 3, 4 years ago. So they meet in congregations, and they when we can, we worship with the congregation. Obviously, this time we won't because we're meeting on a weekday, but we will meet with the representatives from all the congregations in the area. So we have 3 or 4 congregations in New Jersey and 3 or 4 congregations in eastern Pennsylvania. And so we will have a dinner on Monday night, and we'll invite representatives from all those congregations to come to meet the board and ask the board questions and things like that. And what does the board do? I'm glad you asked. The board does a lot of kind of governance stuff for the congregations. We also we provide an education exec for all of our schools. We provide a mission exec to try to get missions started and to support missionaries. We maintain with the bishop all of the call lists and all the calling congregations and all the legal issues for a district as a whole. We approve all the constitutional changes of all 165 congregations. So anytime a congregation makes a change in their constitution, it has to be approved by the district. We do a lot of planning, a lot of financial stuff. Our bishop, current bishop, is financially very savvy, and he has grown us in our endowment fund. He's grown us to $2.5 million now in our endowment fund, and then we use the interest from all that for missions, to help church workers pay off school debt, to help congregations in need. Like we just put a roof on Christ English, their school, to try to get them up and running. We put new furnace in Bethesda Lutheran School in the city to try to help it, because those are such huge expenses for a small little school with only like 100 students. To have to put a boiler in can just ruin them. So the district does all kinds of stuff like that. Congregational services is basically what they do. And then they do things like when you have problems in your parish, they send people like me in to help fix those problems. Yeah. That I have one of the guys in Missouri says, he's so funny. I went down to his church one time for something. I can't remember what it was, and he says, "All pastors shudder when they see the big black Buick pull into the driveway." He was my vicar, which was a pastor you supervise. It's right out of school, and so I supervised him, and now he's in Missouri.
Like a student teacher.
Yeah, sort of like a student teacher, right? Yeah. Danya says, "Is this in the Bible?" Yes, it is. It's in 3rd Hezekiah, chapter 4, verse 36. You'll see it in there. What's that?
Yeah, it talks about the English.
Yeah.
Yes, 3rd Hezekiah. 3rd Hezekiah. 3rd Hezekiah is where everything is written that should have been in the Bible, and that didn't quite make it in. So, I have my... Is two in my Bible.
It's like a joke.
Yeah. It's in my Bible.
Yeah.
Like get some into autism, get some blinker fluid. Something like that.
Blinker fluid. Yeah. You need some. The problem is you need some blinker fluid. Okay, we're going to finish up the section of Psalm 119 that we started last week. So we are in Psalm 119, verse 105. Psalm 119, verse 105. Anyway, what's that?
The scribe's hands had to get tired after this one.
Oh yeah. And remember that it's acrostic. So every section has a like this is the section called Nun, which means that every verse has to start with a Nun. Okay, and so the letter Nun starts with every verse, all the way down. And you have to make sure that you don't screw that up because it's poetry. It's Hebrew poetry, and so we don't see it so much in English, but in Hebrew it's more obvious. Anyway, remember having said all that about the English district. Remember 2 weeks. I'm off, and then we're back Thanksgiving week. We'll meet on Tuesday night, Thanksgiving
We
week.
can't meet here on Tuesday night,
Huh?
right? I thought we couldn't be here because of the radar testing.
I don't know anything about this.
Didn't you sign the paper?
I didn't read it.
I didn't read it either, but no one's supposed to be in the building the week of Thanksgiving.
Well, we have services, Lindsay.
We have Wednesday night
I
services.
know, but I would check with Mark. I signed a paper that said I understood that I couldn't do anything in the building.
I thought we just couldn't open windows and couldn't open certain doors and things like that. We can be in the building.
I don't know, she told me that, well, down here though. I don't know,
I'll ask Margaret about it.
yeah. so-
But we'll assume we're going to be here. If not, we'll be in Judy's living room. On yeah, it's a Tuesday before Thanksgiving. It's not like she has anything to do. She's busy. I don't know. We'll find. I'll check with Margaret. All right, your word, and this is noon is a real popular verse. You'll know your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. That's in like 50 different Christian songs. If you can't miss it. I have sworn an oath and confirmed it to keep your righteous rules. I am severely afflicted. Give me life, O Lord, according to your word. Accept my free will offerings of praise, O Lord, and teach me your rules. I hold my life in my hand continually, but I do not forget your law. The wicked have laid a snare for me, but I do not stray from your precepts. Your testimonies are my heritage forever, for they are the joy of my heart. I incline my heart to perform your statutes forever to the end. Okay, the word grows faith, and faith gives us light. Yeah, that's the way it works. When faith is strong, the light is bright, and God's way is evident. When faith is weak, we live in darkness. And it's not usually a switch. It's a rheostat, The stronger our faith, the brighter our life. The weaker our faith, the dimmer our life. And pretty much you can tell that. You can look at your life and you can see where the dark places were or are. You can say, oh yeah, that was a dark time. Oh look, and I also wasn't very close to God, and I wasn't reading my Bible, and I wasn't going to church, and I wasn't doing all the things I know that I should be doing and receiving the sacrament and all the stuff. And golly, the longer I did that, the darker everything got, which is kind of the way it works. It's kind of funny because I can almost always tell when somebody's having a crisis of faith in the church. You know how?
They don't
They don't come.
Yeah, they vanish. They vanish. Okay? They vanish from church, and I call and I say, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. What's going on? Everything's fine. Oh, well, it's strange that you used to come every week for like 10 years, and then you just stop coming and everything's fine. Yeah, everything's fine. And then another 6 or 8 weeks goes by. Hey, how's it going? What's going on? Oh, everything's fine. Yeah, it's fine. And then eventually you'll hear what happened. Something happened, and there was some kind of problem, and somebody was mad at God, or whatever. Usually it's mad at God. That's what people usually get, pissed at God, and then they quit going to church. That's like I can't even think of a good example. But it's why would it's cutting off the hand that feeds you. It's you cutting out, the old phrase, cutting off your nose to spite your face. I mean, it's dumb. When you have those hard times and something difficult happens, that's when you need God most. That's when you need to be closest to God, either reading your Bible or in church or receiving the sacrament, all those things combined, Bible study, whatever. Get closest to God, the more the harder times are. But for whatever reason, people often do that. Your word is my heritage, it says. Where does it say that? I've lost where I had it written there. Your testimonies, there it is. Your testimonies in verse 111 are my heritage forever. Understand that being God's child comes with an inheritance. Okay? A lot of people don't get that. being God's child comes with an inheritance. That is no small thing. It reminds me, in our family, Danya's making comments about that I'm scary, but I don't know I never know quite what she's talking about, but particularly now. Carter, you have not had the pleasure of meeting my wife yet. Yeah, be afraid. Be very afraid. In Danya's family, they have mineral rights to this oil well or something, or this land where they're doing fracking or something next door. And anyway, we got this letter from an attorney, that said, we're going to start drilling on your land, and here's the down payment. So there's some kind of thing they have to pay to have permission to drill on your land. And we got a check for, I don't remember how much, it was a few $1,000s. And it's like, I feel like Jed Clampett, This is great. Let me tell you about a story about a man named Jed. And we were going to be millionaires, and all this. And nothing happened. No, never got a second check, never got another word from the company. They decided that it was, too. Huh? Yeah, I got a bill, yeah. Yeah, by the way, we punctured a tire while we were on your land. So I mean, it's, but I remember at the time thinking about that why don't we understand our inheritance from God like that? It's because our inheritance from God, what Jesus won for us on the cross, is so much bigger than money. It's so much bigger than money. I mean, it's a eternity in paradise as princes and princesses of the kingdom. That's phenomenal. And what we do here on earth should be all pointed toward that. It's not always, obviously, because we sin, but to our best effort, it's all pointed towards that, who we are as inheritors of eternal life. So it's I love that word heritage when it shows up in Scripture, because it reminds us of what our heritage is. The heritage and inheritance come from the same root. The inheritance is what you receive from your family, and heritage is also what you receive from your family, and who you are, who your line is, and how all that kind of stuff. And our heritage and our inheritance are closely knit together in God. Samak, which is an S sound. I hate the double-minded, but I love your law. Pay attention to that. I hate the double-minded, but I love your law. Before we go on, let's look at Revelation 3:15. Someone look up Revelation 3:15 and 16. And remember, I always mention it because it causes me to have apoplexy when I hear it. There is no S on the book of Revelation. It is one revelation, not many revelations.
You said 3:15?
Revelation 3:15 and 16.
You want us to read it?
Yeah, because my phone's acting stupid. Yeah, verses 15 and 16.
I know your works. You are not. You are neither cold nor hot. I wish that you were either cold or hot. So because you are lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I am about to spit you out of my mouth.
Yeah, that's God talking to the church of, is it Laodicea? I can't remember which one it is.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Laodicea. Yeah. You're neither hot nor cold. You're lukewarm. So I'm about to spit you out of my mouth. I mean, have you ever done that? Have you ever thought you're going to have a drink of cold water and it was lukewarm? Haven't you? Has it ever happened to you? It's so gross. Yeah. Yeah, or vice versa. You think it's going to be hot and it's lukewarm. Yeah. That happens to me all the time, I guess, because in the bathroom we have a faucet where one side is hot, one side is cold, and sometimes I wash my hands, put my contacts in, and then I forget to switch it over before I fill my cup for brushing my teeth, and oh, yeah, nothing worse. Well, that's the concept there, is that there's nothing worse than neither hot nor cold. Okay, that's being double-minded. God, it's a nice way of God saying to us, you gotta go one way or the other. You can't, and Jesus says it. I think it's this Sunday that I talk about it. He talks about you can't serve two masters, either God or mammon. And you know what mammon is? The easy translation is money, but it's not just money. Mammon is everything of this world that is not of God. And when Jesus says that to us, you can't serve God and mammon. He's saying you can't play this game of I'll be worldly and call myself Christian, because you can, but it's going to damage your faith. The more you walk down that path, the worse it's going to get. Carol?
So is mammon like possessions?
Anything. Anything. Yeah, it can be possessions. It can be money. It can be in the sermon. We'll see. I'll probably cause consternation, but it's it can be political allegiance. Okay, you can't play that game of saying I'm a Christian, but I'm going to vote for whoever gives me the best tax break. Okay, or I'm going to I don't care that this guy is in favor of abortion. He's going to help the economy. So I'm going to vote for him. I don't care whether and I understand, I'm not Pollyanna. I understand there's no perfect candidate, and no matter what you do, you're going to vote for a sinner, because there's no other choice. But I'm just saying that Christians, what Jesus says to us is that we need to have that in the front of our brain, is that always everything that we do in this life is first of all centered in Him. I think God said it in the first commandment: "You shall have no other gods before me." Okay, and then He says, "I am a jealous God, visiting iniquity upon the third and fourth generations of those that hate me." He doesn't play. He's serious about this. And then Jesus says, "You can't serve two masters." In Revelation, "You're neither hot nor cold. You're lukewarm. I'm going to spit you out of my mouth." There's other places where he talks about being double-minded, but here in Psalms, right there it says, "I hate the double-minded, but I love your law." Why does he love God's law? Because God's law is clear. It's black and white. You don't have to be mystified by figuring out God's law. It's real simple. In fact, it's so simple that it grates on people's nerves, because people want gray area. Why do we want gray area? So that we,
It's a good place to hide.
Yeah, gray is a great place to hide. That's right. That's why Lucas wears it all the time. He's just trying to hide. Gray is a great place to hide. It gives me latitude. We used to, the Episcopalian Church used to be called the Latitudinarians. Do you know that? Years ago, maybe 70 or 80 years ago, they were referred to as the Latitudinarians, because anything went. You could do anything as an Episcopalian, and you still can.
Is Episcopalian like a section like the Anglican Church?
It's the Americanized version of the Anglican Church, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. Although there are Anglican churches in the United States, which are separate from the Episcopal Church, and they are very clear about that, because they don't want to be Episcopal either.
I believe I've heard them referred to as the Cosmopolitan Church a few times.
Could be, yeah, could be. Yeah,
Which one?
the Episcopalians.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can find I used to go to an Episcopalian church in Austin, Texas, because it was more Lutheran than any of the other Lutheran churches. Just because you can do anything you want in the Episcopal Church. And so they had a really bright priest who loved Luther and loved the Confessions. And I told him one time, I said, I don't understand why you're not Lutheran. And he said, because I have a house in Tarrytown and a new Mercedes every year.
Well, that is worshiping
Well, his point is, I can be the priest here. I can be just as Lutheran as you are, and still have a house and tear it down in a new Mercedes every year. Because they allow anything. On the other hand, you go out to the left coast, and you'll find Episcopalian churches where you have priestesses worshiping crystals. So you got everything. Double-mindedness is not okay with God. Okay, whatever else you want to say, he's clear. Here's the law. Follow it. Okay, and if you don't follow it, he gives you the option to repent. Right? Repentance is there. And what does repentance mean? It means turn around. Yeah, turn around. You can always turn around. You are my hiding place and my shield. I hope in your word. Depart from me, you evildoers, that I may keep the commandments of my God. Uphold me according to your promise, that I may live. And let me not be put to shame in my hope. Hold me up, that I may be safe, and have regard for your statutes continually. You spurn all who go astray from your statutes, for their cunning is in vain. All the wickedness of the earth you discard like dross. Therefore, I love your testimonies. My flesh trembles for fear of you, and I am afraid of your judgment. When he says my flesh trembles, sometimes people get uncomfortable with that because people don't like the idea of being afraid of God. Okay? But if you're living inconsistently with what God has told you to do, you should be afraid. You should be very afraid because you are living inconsistently with the creator of the universe who has said, this is how you shall live. And it's one thing to say, I'm trying, Lord, but I'm not always doing the best job, and I'm sorry. It's another thing to say, I'm going to live the way I want. I don't really care what you say. Those are two wholly different things. Sometimes people get confused as to whether or not they should take the Lord's Supper, because Jesus says if you are going to the altar and you remember you have something against your brother, or your brother has something against you, put your gift down and go resolve it with your brother first, and then come to the altar. And so we've always understood that to say that you can't live your life saying, I'm not going to forgive somebody, and then come to the altar and ask for forgiveness from God. Okay, you can't do that. But saying, I'm not going to forgive somebody is wholly different from saying, I'm trying to forgive you, and I'm struggling with it. Lord, I need your help. Okay, that's a whole different thing. And when you're at that point of saying, I'm struggling to forgive somebody, yeah, you need to be at the altar. You need to be receiving all the gifts of God so that you have the power to forgive. It's unfortunately for us, it's not like a switch like it is with God. God just forgives. Boom, done. For us, it takes time. It's a process. And sometimes only time works until we finally grow enough to where we get to a point of saying, yeah, I'm not sure why I was so mad about that. One day it just kind of, I'm not sure. It really kind of worked out for my benefit, so I'm not sure why I was so mad, because all those things do. The things that we generally get so angry about, we eventually, at some point, it resolves either one of two ways. Either whatever it was eventually helped us, or whatever it was formed us. I understand. Some of my childhood experiences that I was furious about for many, many years, I understand formed me into who I am. I would not be the person I am and have the insights that I have were it not for those experiences. And while I would never, say, pick me, I want to do it again, Lord, I am thankful for what I learned in those experiences, because it really helped me and it really formed my faith. We live in a world of mindless prescriptions and unmindful morality. Okay, we live in a world of mindless prescriptions and unmindful morality. In other words, we live in a world right now that loves making rules. They just love making rules. If there's not a rule they don't like, okay, and they have the fantasy And by they, I'm talking about that group of men in Houston that sit around a table and make all the rules. You know about them, right? They. Whoever they is, they have the fantasy that everything can be addressed by a rule. We had this discussion with the pastors today. Once a month, we meet, all the pastors of the English district in the Chicagoland area meet together, and we have a discussion. And it's been really pretty light because of COVID and all that, so it's not as robust as it used to be, but we still do it. But we were talking today about the overreaching of the government into the church, and that and there's people come down both sides of it. But I contend that the government has no right to tell the church when to worship, how to worship, when to be open, when not to be open. And it took a year and several months, but the Illinois Department of Public Health finally confirmed my premise when about a month and a half, 2 months ago, they issued the statement that churches are exempt from all of the governor's executive orders. Okay, so thank you very much.
But had you shut down back in March of 2020, we'd have missed all those
Right.
weeks.
Right. Yeah. I chose not to wait for the Illinois Department of Public Health to confirm my beliefs, and I chose not to care what the governor said when it came to religious restrictions, because I don't believe he has any authority in this building, other than legal authority. He can come in and he can tell us, if we're doing something against the state law. But remember, an executive order is not state law.
Right.
An executive order is a strong suggestion at
What about
best.
a mandate?
Right. A mandate again is a strong suggestion. Yeah. It's just people, and I firmly believe that part of the problem that we're suffering from in this country is this idea of it's laziness. It's just we'll let the government make all the rules, and then we don't have to think. Okay, mindless prescriptions. Okay, rather than say, you need to be, which is what we said here, you need to be responsible for your own health. Okay? We're going to have church. You need to be responsible as to whether you feel like that's safe for you to be here or not, under the conditions that we're going to do. And we're going to do things like suggest social distancing, and we're going to have a service for masking. And we're going to, so that if you are immunocompromised or you have health issues and you need to be around people who have masks on, we'll offer a service for that. We'll reduce singing for a period of time. We'll do more of a spoken service. We'll go to continuous communion instead of gathering together at the altar. We'll take common sense precautions when we know that there's a relatively dangerous virus that's prevalent among us. Okay, but that's up to individuals to decide that, up to individual groups to decide that. That is not something that we should say to the government, well, you decide for us, and then tell us what to do. Okay, that's a mindless prescription, because every situation is different. If we were a 5,000 member community church that met together in a small sanctuary where we were shoulder to shoulder and shouting hallelujah into each other's faces and rolling in the floor and drooling when we're slain by the Spirit, and different. If we're doing stuff like that, it's probably too dangerous to meet when the virus is in full swing. And so maybe we'll have to make some other kinds of accommodations. We're German Lutherans. We sometimes when things are really, really funny, we almost smile out loud. It's not, we're not in danger around here of being over rambunctious in worship. Every church is different, and every place is different, and those places need to make decisions that are right for their people. Okay, and I am not critical of other pastors in the way they handle the virus. I've said that a million times, is that everybody did this the first time. Okay, there was no class in the seminary for how to handle pandemics. No one had a class like that. So we all had to do it for the first time on our own. We had to figure it out as we went along. I'm not critical of other pastors, but please do not be critical of how I handle my parish. I don't want to hear any of your nonsense criticism based on governmental prescriptions. Okay? Especially when the governmental prescriptions are completely devoid of any morals. Okay? You know, so, what?
Or actual science allowed.
Right, well, yeah. Science aside, who cares about that? All right, anything else on that section of Psalm 119, or we're going to move on to Acts 23? Oh, look at you. Look at you with your bookmarks already.
You already know. It's a big book,
Who was it? One of the kids in confirmation last week looked at, or the week before. Might have been, it was the week you weren't there, I think. Was that last week? She looked at me and says, do you have a bookmark? What do you think I am, the library? Tear off a piece of paper. You have a bookmark? Yes, I'm here for all of your needs.
Yeah.
New project.
Yeah, new project, making bookmarks, yeah. Maybe that's why she asked. Maybe she knew there were a bunch of bookmarks I just didn't know about them. I thought that was a hilarious
I
question.
used it on my iPad.
What's that?
How do I use it on my iPad?
How do I use my bookmark? Yeah, it's a little different. You do have a bookmark on there, but it's a little different. Okay, Acts 23. And looking intently at the council, Paul said, "Brothers, I've lived my life before God in good conscience up to this day. And the high priest, Ananias, commanded those who stood by him to strike him on the mouth. Then Paul said to him, 'God is going to strike you, you whitewashed wall.'" That's a great line, "you whitewashed wall." Paul has a great way of swearing at people without ever actually swearing at people. "Are you sitting to judge me according to the law, and yet contrary to the law, you order me to be struck?" Those who stood by said, "Would you revile God's high priest?" And Paul said, "I did not know, brothers, that he was the high priest. For it is written, 'You shall not speak evil of a ruler of your people.'" Now when Paul perceived that one part were Sadducees and the other were Pharisees, he cried out in council. Okay, I'll stop there for a minute. Brothers, Paul starts out letting them know that he's one of them. Okay, that address is the way you would address a group of people who were, we're all, I might say like Trinity family, something like that. Brothers is a way of doing that. He's not some foreigner who has come in with foreign teachings, even though he wasn't born there in Jerusalem. He's clearly been there for some time. He was educated there, so he's not a foreigner. Ananias, this is not the Ananias who was in the Sanhedrin with Jesus. Different Ananias. Apparently this Ananias historically was known for his petulant violence. Things he would do to people that were just, the historians report that he was really, really rude. And so he struck Paul. Why did he have Paul struck up? Well, he didn't strike him. He had him struck on the mouth. Why? My suspicion is just because he wanted to. He's just a nasty, mean person. And Paul had the guts to say, "I have lived my life before God in all good conscience up to this day." And so he decided to have him struck. And of course, Paul sallies back with that great line of, "You're a whitewashed wall, and God's gonna strike you, buddy." A whitewashed wall. What does he mean by that?
Like himself.
Yeah.
Blank slate. Like he's just stone faced.
Yeah. When you whitewash a wall?
Remove.
Huh?
Well, you remove things.
Yeah, I think of it as covering up things. I think, what is the real color of what's the real color of the walls in here? Dingy gray, because it's made out of concrete block. So I'm sure it's just kind of a dingy, ugly gray. and we can paint it a pretty peach or whatever color you call this. I don't know what it is. Yeah, it's not yellow.
And like
It's
an autumn motif.
yeah, we can do an autumn motif, but it's still dingy gray blocks underneath, you know. And so that's kind of what I think of. Jesus at one time calls the Pharisees whitewashed tombs, which is an even better one. Yeah, you whitewashed tombs. Yeah,
Hiding their evil, kind of.
Yeah.
Or whatever, who they really.
yeah. You can dress yourself up however you want. You know, you
Very
can.
pious on the outside, but what they are on the inside.
Yeah, you can't turn a sow's ear into a silk purse. You know, as the old saying my mother used to say.
Would he have been speaking Hebrew too?
You can put lipstick
Would
on
Paul have been speaking Hebrew? Yeah, he would have been speaking Hebrew here. Yeah. Paul may not have known who he was because we think he had chronically poor eyesight. A lot of people think that's what he was talking about when he talked about his thorn in the flesh. Think of that as how much more difficult his life would have been with bad eyesight. Really bad eyesight. I mean, so bad that there's some point at which he has somebody else writing for him. He has a scribe writing for him. So he had really bad eyesight. So he might not even know who it was who had him struck. On the other hand, he might have known exactly who it was and wanted to fire off an insult and wanted to be clear when he said, oh, yeah, it's a sin to speak against your leaders. By saying so, he's saying to the guy, and you're no leader. So I don't recognize you as being a religious leader. Yeah.
Yeah, I might think that he like if he didn't know who he was, he certainly wouldn't have guessed him to be a high priest by his actions.
Right.
And his words. You know?
Yeah. I suspect that it's not just some people would take that line when Paul said, "I did not know, brothers, that he was high priest." Some people take that as Paul saying, "Oh, sorry, I wouldn't have said that." I just don't think so. That just doesn't ring true for me for everything else I know of Paul. I think that he probably knew exactly who it was and was making the point. You're a whitewashed wall, and you don't fool me. Okay, so 6 through 10, Paul he's also a brilliant tactician and politician. Now, when Paul perceived that one part were Sadducees and the other were Pharisees, he cried out in council. Okay, wait a minute. What's the difference between a Sadducee and a Pharisee?
One believes and the other one doesn't.
Believes in what?
Christ.
No, they both believe
Resurrection.
resurrection from the dead. The way you remember that is that the Sadducees do not believe in the resurrection from the dead. And that's why they're sad, you see? Yeah, that's how you... Hey, things like that got me through seminary. I'm telling you right now.
There's a song about that.
Is there?
It's part of it.
Oh, yeah. That's I don't want to be a sheep. Yeah, I just want to be a sheep. I don't want to be a sad, you see? Yeah, you're
I
right.
want to be fair.
Yeah.
That's how I remember it all the time.
Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah. So he says, oh, hold on. Sarah's maybe answering the question in time lapse. The Sadducees are sad, you see. Yeah. Time lapse. Let's see. He cried out at the council, brothers, I am a Pharisee, a son of Pharisees. It is with respect to the hope and the resurrection of the dead that I am on trial. And when he had said this, a dissension arose between the Pharisees and Sadducees, and the assembly was divided. For the Sadducees say that there is a resurrection, nor angel, nor spirit. But Pharisees acknowledge them all. Then a great clamor arose, and some of the scribes of the Pharisee party stood up and contended sharply. We find nothing wrong with this man. He's perfectly all right. What if a spirit or an angel spoke to him? And when the dissension became violent, the tribune, afraid that Paul would be torn to pieces by them, he's already in trouble because he found out he's a Roman citizen, commanded the soldiers to go down and take him away from among them by force and bring them into the barracks. Okay, so Paul is brilliant. He divides and conquers. Okay, he throws a big bomb right into the middle of them. and then watches the pretty colors explode. You know, he is brilliant, and there's nothing better than watching stupid people eat each other, and just stepping back and letting them do it. You know, verse 11: the following night the Lord stood by him and said, "Take courage, for as you have testified to the facts about me in Jerusalem, so you must testify also in Rome." And so from that point on, Paul knows where he's headed, and more than likely what he's headed to. I mean, he knows he's not long for the world, because once he gets to Rome, he knows that's where they have the ability to execute him, and they probably will, because who's in power by this time? Nero. Yeah. So he knows that he's likely not to make it very much past Nero.
That's where the wheels are going to come off the chariot.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And he knows that. Verse 12. When it was day, the Jews made a plot and bound themselves by oath neither to eat nor drink till they had killed Paul. There were more than 40 who made this conspiracy. They went to the chief priests and elders and said, "We have strictly bound ourselves by an oath to taste no food till we have killed Paul. Now, therefore, you, along with the council, give notice to the tribune to bring him down to you, as though you were going to determine his case more exactly. And we are ready to kill him before he comes near." So this is how good men of God handle things. They just murder the person who's causing them problems. Never think for a minute that human beings cease being human beings just because they're religious. Okay? They can be as religious as the day is long, and they are still human. Okay? That's what we always have to remind ourselves of that, because so easily we put religious people, somehow we excuse any violence, any wrongdoing, any horrible stuff. Oh, well, they're good religious people, you know.
Any massive atrocities that have happened in history.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's, you have to take ownership of the reality that we're all sinful. And we've all made stupid calls and stupid decisions, and religious leaders particularly need to be aware that they are even more on the hook for leadership that leads their people into those kinds of atrocities. Okay? But those atrocities are awfully convenient sometimes, and they've made the church a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, atrocity is a very, I always tell, every time we have money problems around here, I said, I think we were hasty to get rid of those indulgences. Just saying. Just saying. That might have been rash. So you have these good religious people here, and their idea is, well, we'll just kill them. Verse 16, now the son of Paul's sister heard of their ambush, so he went and entered the barracks and told Paul. Paul called one of the centurions and said, "Take this young man to the tribune, for he has something to tell him." So he took him and brought him to the tribune and said, "Paul, the prisoner, called me and asked me to bring this young man to you, as he has something to say to you." The tribune took him by the hand, and going aside asked him privately, "What is it that you have to tell me?" And he said, "The Jews have agreed to ask you to bring Paul down to the council tomorrow, as though they were going to inquire somewhat more closely about him. But do not be persuaded by them, for more than 40 of their men are lying in ambush for him, who have bound themselves by oath neither to eat or drink till they have killed him. And now they are ready, waiting for your consent." So the tribune dismissed the young man, charging him, "Tell no one that you have informed me of these things." So Paul's nephew intervenes. He comes in, he finds out about this. He tells Uncle Paul what's going on, and then he goes and tells the tribune about it. It makes me wonder, it's just something I wonder about. There's not a biblical reference for this. Once this kid heard, maybe he's a kid, maybe he's not, could be probably a grown man actually, thinking about it. But once he heard about this plot against Paul, don't you think he probably told a bunch of Christians about it? I mean, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you go? I mean, before you go talk to the prisoner and go through all that and tell the Tribune and all that, wouldn't you go and tell your family and your friends and, what's going on here? I can't believe this is going on. It just makes me wonder, where are they all? Okay? And it reminds me, if you've ever read Dietrich Bonhoeffer, he's a famous German pastor who was executed by Hitler in Nazi Germany because he wouldn't back down from saying you're wrong. He was a Lutheran, and Bonhoeffer said it only takes good men to do nothing for evil to prosper. That's not an exact quote, but that's basically what he said. So it always reminds me of that Christians have to stand up and be counted. And if we don't stand up and get counted, then it shouldn't surprise us when evil prospers. It shouldn't surprise us. We can't continue ignoring things of this world like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's just of the world. It doesn't matter. It's so easy to ignore horrendous things that are being done because, it doesn't affect me. I'm tucked away in this nice little suburban church out in Villa Park, and it doesn't touch me. So what do I care? Not my business. But those things spread. If people like Lori Lightfoot are allowed to prosper, and she's evil, she's pure evil. If people like that are allowed to continue doing the kinds of things they do, raiding churches, trying to shut churches down, things like that, don't be surprised when it comes out here, because it'll happen. It'll happen. Was it Bonhoeffer who also said first they came for the Catholics and I ignored it because I think it was Bonhoeffer that said that. He said first they came for the Catholics because I ignored it because I wasn't Catholic. Then they came for the gays and I ignored it because I wasn't gay. Then they came for the Jews. I ignored it because I wasn't Jews, and now they've come for me. You can't just ignore atrocity being done to people because it doesn't touch you. We've got to stand up and be counted. Well, primarily being in this country, being an informed voter is the first and most important thing to do. Is to put your faith to work at the polls, and to make sure that you vote and that you know who you're voting for. That you're not just going down and checking boxes, but that you know that you're voting for somebody who represents as closely as possible your moral compass. Obviously, I know there's everyone that runs is a sinner. That's the problem. I understand that, and there's nobody who's going to be the perfect candidate because Jesus isn't running. So but we got to stand up and be counted and say, first and foremost. The other thing is that we pay attention to what we support. Just like Judy just recently was backed off of an organization that we were thinking about supporting because we found out it was all promoting gay and lesbian and transgender and all this stuff. We didn't know that. We thought it was just a youth thing, and they were supporting youth. And then we got a little bit involved and found out, oh no, they have an agenda. And so we backed away and said, nope. This church, we've cut off our support from agencies that promote things that are not consistent with Christianity. I've said it before, I'll say it again, and people will probably scream and cry and gnash their teeth. Black Lives Matter is a Marxist organization. Marxism is opposed to Christianity. Okay, categorically. Christianity does not fit in to the model of Marxism. Critical race theory is a Marxist discipline. Okay, the theory is the same. Read Marxism, read critical race theory, and you'll say, gee, that sounds an awful lot like the same thing. Instead, one place we're talking about the bourgeois and proletariat, one part we're talking about black people and white people, but it sounds awfully like the same theory. It is.
The lady from West Christian Clearinghouse said that if you support an agency that gets government aid, you're not going to get the kind of agency. They have to follow what the
Right.
government says.
Right.
So
Right.
if you're going to support someone, go with a private agency,
Right.
not with someone that's got government funding.
Right.
Because they have to do what the government does.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, if you want the government handout, you got to play the government rules. That's right. We've fought through that on Lutheran Child and Family Services, and that's why I left.
Did you get the little door knocker on your door living Lombard?
No.
District 87?
Huh.
Critical race theory.
Oh, really? I didn't get it.
And Willowbrook, I get the bordergram all the time, was just requested to FOIA about the 1619 project.
I don't know what that is.
Similar to critical race.
Oh, okay.
Whites are evil.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, they are,
yeah.
but not any more evil than everybody else.
1619 believes that the blacks founded the United States.
Oh, I do know what that is. Yeah. Well, I guess my history teacher was wrong.
You know, this that you brought up about this little story here, you know, the fact that nobody showed up, you know, to help Paul out.
Right. I just wonder. I mean, that's not biblical. I want to be clear about that.
No, but I think that's really interesting, you know, that you brought that up. And can't you kind of almost imagine that? I mean, this is still a relatively young movement.
Right.
A lot of people are on the fence probably yet. You
Right.
know, which way is this going to go? You know?
Right.
And,
Not going to stick my neck out.
yeah, until I know for sure, you know, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And, but don't we kind of see that happening today?
Yes.
It's still, you kind of go so far with it, but when all of a sudden, when the chips are really down, you know, where do you go, you know?
Right.
You
Yeah, and I agree.
support it or not.
All I'm saying is, I think it's time. We better draw the line, because I think it's getting dicey. And I think the church. I just attended a conference, a pastors' conference, and the main speaker is the CEO of Lutheran. What's it called? I can never remember. Lutheran Civil Liberties something. It's a office we operate in Washington D.C. To protect our civil rights as Christians, and he's the CEO of it. And he's saying the same stuff. He's saying, Christians, wake up and smell the roses, because things can get real dangerous for us real fast here. We've been very lackadaisical. Yeah, I mean, things have been pretty nice in this country for Christians. We've never had persecution, really.
Well, per se.
Yeah, really. Not like over in Ethiopia or places like that where you can get killed by Muslims and nobody does anything about it. But if we don't wake up, we could be in trouble real quick here. All right, we're going to close. Remember, we don't meet for 2 weeks. We will meet the week of Thanksgiving somewhere, maybe Judy's living room, and I will let everybody know if we're not meeting in here. I'll let you know. Otherwise, assume we're meeting in here. Let's close with the blessing. The Lord bless us and keep us. The Lord make his face shine upon us and be gracious unto us. The Lord lift up his countenance upon us and give us peace. Amen.
Well, we'll see what the Virginia election turns out to be.